Yeah.
Great, great. Okay, I think we're live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm Samantha Studebaker-Carl, broadcasting live from, where am I? I'm in beautiful Southwest Georgia. I lost my train of thought there for a second. I've got the sun shining on me very brightly this morning. The only thing keeping me in the shade is actually this one skinny little tree. But anyway, I just wanted to welcome everybody and say we're glad to have you here. Go ahead and comment on the page. Let us know that you're hanging out with us. And I'm here with my good friends Danielle, Jason, Dan, and Catherine. And Sandy should be jumping on here at any moment. But we are studying the book, the new, or what am I saying? Not the new. How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age. Let me see if I can get that right in the shades area. And but before we start jumping into that, I'm just going to have everybody just go through and introduce themselves, and just go ahead and start with you, Catherine.
Good morning. This is Catherine in Boulder, Colorado, and I hope everyone had a wonderful and safe Halloween night last night, and so glad you joined us this morning. I see you over there, Marlene. Glad you're here with us this morning.
Good morning, this is Dan Smith in Boise, Idaho. It's going to be a beautiful rainy day today here in this area, but anyway, it's a gorgeous day anyway. So welcome to the call.
Morning, everybody. This is Danielle DeLyons out in Anaheim, California. We have rain. We poured all night last night, actually, as well, Dan, and really happy to be here.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Jason in St. Petersburg. We're having beautiful weather here, but we are getting that cool snap. I hope everybody's having a great morning, and welcome.
Awesome, awesome. Welcome, Marlene. Glad to see you out there. Anybody else who's hanging out with us, go ahead and comment on the page. Let us know where you're hanging out from, and we'd be happy to hear from you. And as we go through this discussion, feel free to jump in and add your thoughts at any point in time. Right now, we actually have been studying this book for a couple of weeks now. I'm trying to find my spot in here. We're actually in part 2, and part 2 is 6 ways to make a lasting impression. And the first section of part 2, or the first chapter, is take interest in others' interests. And and of course we have our little pre-mastermind discussion that we post in our Google Plus community. And by the way, if you haven't been to our Google Plus community, you can find it by going to mindsetmasterycollective.com. And every week we post kind of like a pre-mastermind discussion where we say, okay, read this chapter and then share with us your insights and experiences, what you learned the most out of the chapter, and that sort of thing. And this week we had everybody kind of commented on there. I completely forgot to do it. I'll be honest with you. It faced my mind for some reason, and I never got over there to add to the discussion. But I did read through everybody's comments this morning, and we had some really wonderful, what's the word I'm looking for? We have some really awesome comments over there, and I think that it's awesome, or not awesome, but I think that it's wonderful to get everybody's insights on this, and particularly with this chapter, with all of us being in the home business industry, or at least most of us. I mean, if you're out there watching and you're not in the home business industry, maybe you're doing something else, that's completely cool too. But those of us on the panel are actually all in the home business industry, and one of the things that we see people struggle with the most is communicating with other people and kind of communicating their message, helping people to buy their products, getting them to join their business, and that sort of thing. And this book is so important because of the way that we communicate with people. A lot of times when people jump online and they first get into a home business, they're always just going, join me, join me, join me, here's my business, check out my products, me, join, join, bye, that sort of thing. And that's not how you become successful in a home business online. You've got to be able to communicate with people so that they will be interested in you. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. Is one of the keys is to actually show interest in other people. And Catherine mentioned in the pre-mastermind discussion, she said it was interesting because this chapter, this section opens up with where it's talking about, maybe people should be modeling after dogs, because dogs, they just are so interested. You come home and the dog's running up to you and loving you, and then it loves everybody, and it's happy-go-lucky and all that, and it never sits there and says me, me, me. It's always about you. And and it's one thing that really kind of struck me is that in this chapter it talks about the fact that we are all so self-centered, and it's true that we are, and I personally don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because we are the center of our own universes, and that's important that we understand that, and it's okay for us to be interested in our own selves. And when we can recognize that everybody's interested in their own selves, when you are a person who takes interest in someone else, you stand out from everybody else in the crowd, because all of a sudden someone's paying you attention, right? And when you're that person who's paying somebody attention, then they instantly like you. And so that's a big key and point of this book. But anyway, one thing I was kind of thinking about is, of course, Catherine was talking about the whole dog thing, and then Dan mentioned that he had this friend whose name is Dick, and he was the same kind of way. He's just a super happy-go-lucky guy who just loved everybody. And I'm like, wouldn't it be awesome if we were all like that, right? Because that person obviously stood out in Dan's mind. He remembers him because he's that kind of a person. And I don't know if you guys can think of anybody in your life that you come across who is just always happy and always interested in you and that sort of thing. But I think that's just a really powerful story, I guess you could say. But go ahead and jump out and share your thoughts, guys. Whoever wants to jump out first and just add your thoughts to the conversation.
Yeah, I'll jump out first. I heard years ago that the sales position in the world was the most highest paid position that there was. And I had an interest in creating wealth. And the only problem was I was an extremely painfully shy person. And when you'd say hello to me, I was really hard pressed for an answer because I was so extremely shy. And so my understanding of sales was kind of like the slick car salesman type of person, that you had to actually wear your customer down. You went in there and talked slick and out talked them, kind of the flashy. I think you all know what I'm talking about. Just the person who wears a really bright tie and plaid coat and bright orange pants or whatever, and really just a smooth, slick talker. But the more that I've studied the subject over the years, the more that I came to the point where I understand that it's not being able to out-talk the customer, that it's actually taking an interest in other human beings and not being the center of attention and not spending 45 minutes telling the other person how great that you are, but rather taking the time to ask questions of other people and get to know them and to actually put yourself maybe in like a subservient type of an attitude towards other people. Maybe that's not quite the word that I'm looking for, but not so much, as I put in the pre-mastermind discussion, it's not so much striving to be interesting, but to be interested in other people, to show actual interest in people and to draw them out. And that as a leader, that you don't have to be the center of attention, that you can actually put that other person as the center of attention and draw them out, listen to them, get to know their story, and then how could you help them and how could you add to their lives. So I'll pass it over to somebody else.
I'll jump in next. Something I learned a long time ago that's really started helping me become better and being interested in people and not make the conversation about my interests was using a technique called form. And basically it was going into family, occupation, recreation, motivation, and not just getting a general idea of somebody, but going a step further and asking one or two more questions more in depth about that particular part of their life. And it's interesting. People open up. The more you're that way, they're excited to share their stories with you, and very few of us get the opportunity. And so when we've mastered how to become good at that, to me, it's more of a rewarding experience. I get the opportunity to learn from others. It's not what I can give to others. I have those abilities, but it's more learning what they can give to me so I can help them with what I know I have also. So it's an interaction of relationships on a different level, and we get the opportunity, just like the book was talking about, to do that on a deeper level by, and Samantha's such a great person as an example. I'll use Samantha because I've seen her do it. When I first met her, she comes to my page on Facebook and goes through my quotes and information. She likes things and makes comments. I've seen Catherine do the same, many, you as well, Dan. And Jason, we're just getting to know each other. But I can say that about all of us as a group, and Sandy as well, and Vicki now, that we have all gotten to know each other and our personality and our interests, and we take time to go pay attention. And I really think it takes it to a whole new level of not worrying about what you're putting out there, but what's out there for other people and what you can bring to the table for them.
Yeah, you're totally right, Danielle. I think when you can bring something extra to the table, so to speak, when you're looking to enhance someone's day, uh, whenever possible, I mean, it does a couple things. It helps you to build rapport. It also helps you to get out of your own head. You know, I was thinking about what Dan was saying in regards to sales, because that's where a majority of uh, my background is from. And I've always enjoyed those sales that where you build a relationship and you can sell to that person again in the future. Business to business sales comes to mind because you get to nurture, you get to really build a friendship and a relationship with the person. And I think if you're just thinking about a sale you might make to one person and you never see that person ever again, it's hard to put these sorts of strategies into play. But I think if you just sort of take these strategies and apply them to your everyday life, you'll see uh, how it translates into your business. So that's just a thought that came to mind there. Um, One of these, relating and building rapport. These are all just sort of basic things that are are fundamental, really, in connecting with other people. And so I think, like you're talking about form, I think that's a great place to start. Great place to start, and just um, take that interest, learn a little bit, take interest not only in people but in life in general. Um, you know, I have to admit the hardest thing in here for me has been remembering people's names. Um, Throughout life, I've met, especially when I was really young, I was meeting. My parents were introducing me to all these people, and then I would never see them again, and so I had nothing to go by to relate them to. So at some point, I think I just sort of said, okay, well, I'll meet them again. I'll have to ask them their name again. And so I never really learned the techniques behind doing that. But I think that's very, very powerful because when I have been able to utilize that, I've definitely noticed a difference. So that's what. Anybody else?
I have that same problem, Jason. I'm so bad. Well, I shouldn't even say that I'm bad with names. That's the first part. We have to quit saying we're bad with names.
Oh, there you
Uh,
go. Yeah. Right.
I try to get into the habit of and repeating their name several times so that it sort of clicks and making that mental connection with something else. I learned that in nursing school because I had to learn tons of information and remember it, and so I had all these mnemonics. Is that what they call them? Where it's you attach it to something else that you know to help you remember it. And sometimes it was the craziest stuff, but it still triggered my memory. So I try to do that with names because it doesn't bother me when someone doesn't remember my name, but it impresses me when they do. So I try to do that. I think my biggest challenge in this area is, and just with communicating with people in general, just in real life, and online too, is that there's a quote by somebody, I can't remember the exact words right now, but it's something about, um, oh, how does that go? Now I'm not going to be able to remember it at all, probably. Anyway, you see the world not as it is, but as you are. You guys know that quote, I'm sure. You all know it. You've heard it. But I think that's really true here because I tend to write things and do things and talk to people as if they think like I do, or as if their needs are like my needs, or I don't know how to even communicate what I'm trying to say right now, obviously. But I always have to keep in mind that, you know, people see the world so differently. And if we don't get to know them and we don't get to know their quote story, we really don't have a clue how they see the world. So that's why making those connections and being really interested in somebody and not just asking the questions so that you can get to your pitch. That's not the point either. It's to actually get to know the person, find out what their struggles are to see if there's something I have that can help them. Or maybe I don't have anything that can help them, but I know somebody that has something that can help them. So, but always trying to keep that open mind about, I'm always reminding myself, people don't, aren't looking through your eyes or through your experiences, it's through theirs, and really trying to hone in on that instead of what I think they need, because it's often quite different.
That's so important, Catherine. And it kind of talks about that in this chapter where it's talking about, a lot of companies go out there with this like marketing message that is all about what they think people want, whereas instead of actually doing the research, as they decide who they want to be and what they think people that will want, and they'll create this marketing campaign around it. And it may speak to some people, but it's not necessarily going to speak to everyone. And when you can actually go out there and find out, what do the people want, then you're going to be much more successful when you're communicating to them, even if it is on a broadcast message kind of thing like typical marketing is. But, and I've learned from a number of different mentors that, they say when you can really get an idea of what it is that people want, and you can communicate with them better and on their level. Particularly one of my mentors said that the first things that he does when people get on his list is he sends out a survey to them to see what it is they're truly after, where they are as far as their experience level goes, and what their goals are, and what they need the most help with, and all of those kinds of things. And then he caters his messages to those people and their wants and their needs, versus just sending out these broadcast messages that could be about anything. And I've made that mistake in the past too, where like you were saying, Catherine, I knew what I wanted to, express, and I knew what I thought, because you look back at your own experiences and you're like, okay, well, these are the things that I experienced when I first got started, and so you kind of assume this is the same thing everybody else is going through, but yet at the same time, it may not necessarily be the same thing that everybody else is going through, and so when you take that extra time to get to know people, it helps you communicate with them better and find that common ground of how you can help them, and then you also benefit too. And of course, in the previous chapter, that was what it was saying, is that a salesperson isn't somebody who just sells something. It's a person that really goes and works to find out something that is going to create that common ground and be a benefit to both parties, and that's kind of the key. Whereas, like the sleazy salesman Dan was talking about, they don't care. They just want to sell you anything just because they want to make that sale. They don't care whether it benefits you or not. They don't care whether you can afford it or not. And I was watching a show the other day. What the heck was that show? I can't remember what it was, and I can't even remember the whole story. But basically what it boiled down to was that this person was trying to make some sales and earn a commission, and oh, I remember what it was. I don't know if you guys seen that the show Last Man Standing. I don't know. It's got Tim Allen, and he has like a big outdoor store and whatever. So he had just promoted this one kid to a sales floor person. Well, the kid was like doing terrible because he was being completely honest about every single thing. Like, you got to have life jackets because when this boat flips over, you got to be wearing your. He kind of told him, he's like, you got to turn off some of that, honesty, and just work on making the sale. And so this older guy comes in, this retired guy, and he was like in his 70s or something on a fixed income, and he went ahead and sold this boat to this guy who couldn't afford it, and he felt horrible afterwards. And so, anyways, that was he went from caring about the people to not caring so much, and then just focused on the sale. And of course, that wasn't a good thing. And then, of course, I don't know. It was just an interesting show. It just made me think about that. But Catherine just commented on our page. I want to share what she wrote. If I can get over there. Okay, or not Catherine. I'm sorry. Marlene shared on the page. Marlene says, I was reading the part about self-interest and how we can become isolated. I have had a shift in my life. Always have been the extrovert, never thinking I could withdraw from the world. I did that for a few weeks. Self-reflection is one thing, but isolation left me with the understanding I wasn't sharing the gifts of spirit. I then created the opportunity to serve others. I was out of my comfort zone being a hermit. After that, I have been rewarded with growing older and enjoying others at a level I could never have by going through this process. Isn't it awesome how that happens? Is we kind of make a shift, and then because we make that shift, it changes everything. It just completely changes everything. So that's awesome. Anybody else want to jump in?
I have a perfect example of what we were just discussing. I'm in a lot of different forums, and one of them is a health-related forum where we all share a health challenge. And most of us, have been in there. We've been dealing with this for a long time, and every once in a while we'll have a new person come to the group with all of the answers. They show up, they don't get to know any of us, but they just post the answer to all of our problems, and it's usually something so completely ridiculous that but they come in and they think, oh, I'm going to save all these people. And we had a post a couple days ago, and unfortunately for that person, they really some people got pretty testy about that, because they were like, you can't come in here and just not get to know anybody and put out this one little, oh, this is going to cure you. It's not. We've tried that and 300 other things or whatever. So it was really funny, because he did exactly what we were just talking about. And sometimes it's difficult I find it difficult sometimes. I think all of us here on this panel are in a coaching aspect of, or a mentoring role in some manner or form with our teams or with other people. And it's difficult to, or maybe I should ask this instead of trying to state it. Do you find it difficult to suggest something to help someone? How do you make a suggestion to help someone without telling them that there's something wrong? Does that make sense? Or that you feel that there's something about them that needs to be fixed? Like, how are you getting me, Danielle? I see you shaking your head, and I think maybe Dan too. So I'm going to hush and let y'all come in on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of times when that happens, and you do have to be selective with your words. And so I found a technique called sandwich, where you give them the soft stuff first, and then you give them the meat, the hard stuff that they really need to hear, and then you soften it up again. And I recently had a situation where I think I talked about it in my notes for this discussion. I have a new lady that just joined my team a few weeks ago, and couldn't get her to do anything that would help her business grow. Every suggestion, every way I went around it, that's motivating her, why she wants to do this. She's very money motivated, yet she's not doing the activities that'll make the money come. And it just kept suggesting things, and it just took her hearing a call from somebody else. And it had, she's a very spiritual person, and my particular uplines are very into talking about God and Jesus a lot. And so she had the chance to hear that, and that kind of influenced her a little bit, that, oh, she could see that their interests weren't just talking about money and what we're going to buy and things like that. It was other things. And then just kept making suggestions to her, and all of a sudden it finally, just being gentle. Now that I did the gentle part, now that she could see that she suggested back to me, then it was easier for me to go into the more, okay, this is the meat and potato part now of what we need to do to get things to move. And she fought me again. So we went back to the soft stuff again. And it started netting results. And now she's like, it's kind of a back and forth thing with certain people. But with this person in particular, the sandwich effect has worked very well with her. And I praise her very, very highly, and she loves it. And it's amazing how when you learn personality types, so I was just thinking about another aspect of what I do with people is I try to understand what type of personality they are, and the only way we find that out is by the questions we ask. And I put that into a color group. So either they're like a blue person that's about fun, they're a yellow person that's about helping people, they're a red person that's about money, or that they're influential. Or they're a green person, they're very analytical, they need a lot of facts and information, and that helps me to give them what they need, which ultimately helps me get to my goals as well, but first serving their needs and coming from their standpoint, not my own. Jason,
That's awesome. Oh, that's I love that you talk about the right, asking the right questions to determine what the other person, what their personality type is, and really getting to know them. And I think that's a key thing. Is Dan was talking about the salesman kind of thing. Let me see. I wrote something down here. Hold on a second. I'll write it down. Okay. Well, anyway. I won't worry about what I wrote down, but it was interesting to me because when he was talking about that, that was the first thing was kind of coming into my head with the whole salesman thing, is that a good salesman is somebody who becomes really good at asking the right questions to help guide the person. And I've been talking to my husband off and on recently because he's been struggling with some things at work, and I'm like, you can't just tell people what to do, because they don't generally want to do what they're told, because we all have this kind of like ingrained or inbred or whatever you want to call it, where we have been, because our parents were all whatever it was, we wanted to go exactly against it, so we have this kind of tendency as people in general to not do what we're told to do. And so when you can ask the right questions to get the person to come to the same conclusion that you're trying to get them to come to, then that helps them think it's their own idea, right? And I think that's key right there, is that people have to decide, they have to come to that conclusion on their own. They have to make the decision themselves in order to be willing to take action on it. So that's kind of my thought. Anybody else?
Yeah, Samantha, that's really a really good point. We can sort of help people to maybe focus their vision sometimes if just by asking them the questions that might not only help us get the right get on the same page with them and understand where they're coming from, but also at the same time it helps them kind of like a sounding board to bounce ideas off of, and maybe help them hone their own vision a little bit. I was speaking with a neighbor I don't see very often because he's between houses, and I just found out he is also not stably employed either right now. And I noticed him walking up and down the street in front of his house, and I just called him over. Not something I normally do, to step into somebody's world. I always feel like I'm imposing or bothering somebody, but I did this time, and he came over and talked to me, and he was just talking about his options, and he was worried about the house down here and taking care of it, and worried about the place up north. And I was just kind of really getting to know about him and his situation right now, whereas it had been a while since I spoke to him. So I was just kind of getting reacquainted with him. And by doing that, I noticed a couple points in our conversation. A light went off in his head, because he was talking about, I really don't know what to do. And I was like, well, perhaps, there might be something up north, because he was spending more time up at his house up north. So I figured, well, hey, you must like it up there. And he's like, oh yeah, I really do. But at the same time, he's having a difficult time figuring out where he wants to be. So I was like, well, and what direction his employment should go. And he happens to be, he's a structural engineer, and since he's working up north, he doesn't have the connections or the ability to go back and forth and travel as well, and doesn't have doesn't like to travel as much. So I mentioned consulting, and a light bulb went off in his head. He's like, I've done that once or twice before, but maybe I should look more into that, and then I was like, well, maybe there's something up there that you'd really like to get into, and another light bulb went off in his head, and he's, and I think sometimes it's just that we're so in our own minds, and like I think it was Catherine saying that we project or we see the world through as if it is ourselves, so to speak, and maybe we get caught up in that. Sometimes we just need a person to step into our world and take some interest and kind of hopefully sharpen our vision a little bit while they do that. So we could be that for them. We can be that for people that we come in contact. And I guess that's one way to kind of leave people with a little bit more than when we found them, a little bit more empowered, so to speak. I would say be the inspiration you seek to find in the world, and I guess that kind of goes hand in hand, So those are some thoughts. That's something that just happened recently to me, so just thought I'd bring that up.
I love that I see everybody here, this particular group, and what you were saying, Jason, that, in having a conversation with people, you can lead people to their own ideas about what they need to do. And it's because you're taking that interest that it's drawing out their own thoughts. It's all there a lot of times inside of them. They just don't necessarily know how to express it. And it takes someone else, like yourself, that knows how to bring that out in them to get them to open up and recognize that they have the answers. We all have the answers to what we want or need, just we don't know how to draw them out of ourselves sometimes. So when you master that way, you win that person's affection, so to speak, as a friend, because they think you're the greatest thing in the world. There's somewhere in either this book or another book, I read so many books that it might have been one of Stephen Covey's books, where the person that wrote the book went to a dinner party, and he sat the whole evening not talking, and he was the guest of honor. He spent the evening talking to one of the other people there at the table, finding out about him, and as they left the group, and it might be in this book, the thing that stood out for that person is that because he took such a strong interest in him, he thought he was the most incredible intellectual conversationalist and thought he was the greatest person in the world. And it was because he drew the other person out. And so you have a new friend that is going to have a high respect for you now because you took the time to help him see something in himself. And I just love hearing those kind of things. That it makes the day great.
Yeah. Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah, I think there was a section in this book. It wasn't telling that story, but it was telling a similar story where the person that was speaking, and I don't know if it was actually Dale Carnegie or if he was telling a story. I can't remember which, but he was talking about how this person met a like, I don't know if he was a movie star or he was just somebody that was very well known, and when he met him, that person just started asking him questions, where are you from? Who's your family? How many kids do you have? What do you do? Stuff like that. And he's like, the famous person didn't hardly say anything, and all he did was ask me questions, and that just kind of lifted him up in my eyes of the type of person that he is, and it's real interesting because of course we see a lot of famous people out there that they could give a crap less. They're so into what they're thinking and what they want. They, even though they have all these fans out there that just love them, and yet they sit up here on their high horse and act like they don't really care. And another one of the stories in here was the author Anne Rice, and how she was very much into making absolutely sure that she responded to every single fan's inquiry or question or comment or anything like that, and how at one point in time she had hired like 3 full-time people just so that she could respond to everyone, because she's like, I'm nothing without those people. It's once you realize that your success is dependent upon helping other people have the success, or that your success is dependent upon those people and how they feel about you, is that taking interest in other people just makes the most sense of all, because if you aren't taking interest in other people, they really could give a crap less. It's like, who are you? I don't even know you. I don't care. But and here Sandy mentioned on the pre-mastermind discussion, she was talking about, she shared a couple of different things, and one of them was that when she went to an event not too long ago, she and one of her other friends, I think it was Vicki, was the other person. Since she's not here today, it's okay for us to talk about her when she's generally on the panel. But anyway, she and Vicki went to this event, and they met the CEO of the company that they work in. And, typically you think, okay, you meet somebody that's got 10 million things on their plate and they're busy, that you're probably just going to get a hi, good to meet you, and that's it. Well, he took interest in them and was asking them questions and getting to know them, and then he remembered their names the next day. And like Catherine was saying, that when you remember people's names, people remember you, or they're struck by that. The whole name thing is so important. But she was sharing that story about that CEO showing interest in them, and that, of course, lifted him up in their eyes as far as the type of person that he is. And that's a big key right there, is that when you take interest in other people, then they start to see something in you that makes them feel more, what's the word I'm looking for, just more, not love necessarily, but they just see you as a good person, a person who is caring, and and that sort of thing. But then the other story that she was talking about was how she she had just met this man recently, or she'd been friends with him for a while, and he has some kind of a medical condition, so he had filled out this page on the GoFundMe thing to help get funding for his medical treatment, and she had seen that and could see that there was some improvements that he could make in that so that he could get better results. And she reached out to him and was like, can I help you? Can I help you do this so that you can get some better results? And of course she had some conversations with him, and then he ended up letting her do that, and that's helping his campaign significantly just by her taking that extra effort. And it's not benefiting her in any way other than to make a good relationship with somebody. So I think that that's just so important that we take that extra time. And what's interesting is just like when Danielle was talking about in her pre-discussion, and the fact that this new woman that she's been working with, and she built that extra trust with her, and because she built that extra trust with her, that woman ended up giving her a list of people that she could connect with. And so when we start thinking about the fact that when you can truly make a connection with a person, it's not just that one person that your world opens up to. It actually, that person, you could actually affect more than that person. You affect that person and all the people in their lives too. And so, a lot of times I think people think, well, this getting to know people is so time consuming, and it just, I don't really feel like I'm being productive when all I'm doing is having conversations with people, and and that sort of thing. But the truth is that if you have a few good conversations with just a small amount of people, that can open up your world in a way that is just profound compared to not having any conversations with 100 people. So I think that's a big key right there. And I think Danielle knows. Well, of course, you were mentioning in your discussion about how you built your organization up to like 10,000 people, and so I think, I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, you've got the biggest organization here, I think, that, or you did in that company compared to the rest of us on here. So I feel like you've got the most insight on all of this, Danielle.
They say you copy the right cats, and I had a lot of I've just been really blessed to have really great people around me for a lot of years now that are a lot like what we're talking about this morning. We've read these books, and so we have applied the lessons from these books. And I just observed a lot of people over the years, and it really helped because I'm very big on relationships. I mean, it's funny. I don't know. I feel like it's a gift that any of us can have the gift. I know I have it because I can go into a store and I can talk to a person for 2 minutes and they're hugging me and giving me a kiss on the cheek before they leave. And it's not because I think I'm anything special. It's because of what we're talking about. I think about what I do, and I don't consciously think about it when I'm doing it. It's part of who I've become. I genuinely care about people, and like Jason was saying, I take the time to get to know them and pay attention to who they are and what they're about, and I find ways to compliment people, and I look for the good and the positives in people, ways that I can build them up, and that comes back to you when people really trust you. It's like it is kind of it develops in them wanting other people to know who you are, and more often than not, including this new lady I'm working with right now, everybody, she tells people all the time, I tell everybody about Miss Danielle. They got to meet Miss Danielle, and I'm tickled pink about that. Not because I think I'm somebody, but it's like, wow, I know you don't even realize how much you're impacting another person's life. And she just told me yesterday, she says, you're probably the most positive, happy person I've ever met in my life. I want to be like you. And that's the highest compliment you can ever receive from somebody, that you've been a good example by how you treat them and how you take interest in them, and it comes back to you. And you attract more and more of that to you. And I think that's why in the previous company I was in, our team blew up. Like, I went from couple hundred people to over 10,000 people in 2.5 years. We took a lot of personal interest in you, and I started attracting a lot of those same kind of people to me that were just like me. And so our team grew, and it wasn't because just of me, you know, it was a collective interest of people, and a desire for more. You know, it's a combination of so many little things, you know.
I gotta admit, I don't have the new copy of this book yet. I'm still reading the old one here, so I don't know if this story's in the new copy or not. But it talks about Theodore Roosevelt and how much the staff people, when he was in the White House, loved him because he took the time to stop and talk to the people who worked in the kitchen, or the people who worked just the general staff, the invisible people, the people that, you know, that the higher ranking people have a tendency to forget about and not even recognize that they're there. And yet Theodore Roosevelt, he knew their names. And there's one story in there about I believe she was a cook, and he asked her, "Do you still make that delicious cornbread?" And you notice that she lit up and she beamed, and she brought him a big old slab of cornbread. And he walked away eating it, licking his fingers, and, you know, probably humming a happy tune. And just the effect that had on the staff people, you know, because they're all human beings. You know, we all have feelings, and you know, I kind of going back and forth whether to share this or not, but I'll go ahead and share it with you. You know, I was in the painting business for 36 years. I owned my own company for 26 years, and the real estate agents used to get these, like, sometimes 2 or 3 bus loads full of realtors, and they'd come around, they'd go through houses and just see what the product was out there for them to sell. And I'd be out there working on a house, and to be quite frank with you, the painting business is kind of a dirty business, and it's not unusual for, you know, if you ever see a painter or you see somebody that does drywall, and they'll have paint or drywall mud or whatever all over their pants, all over their shirt, you know, and maybe paint all over their arms and face, and dripping off their earlobes. I mean, you know, let's face it, it's a dirty business, okay? And so I'd have all these realtors come through, and I'm just a person. I say hi to everybody. I put a big smile on my face and say, "Hi, how you doing?" You know, and all these realtors would come through, and they wouldn't even recognize. I think Sandy mentioned it 2 or 3 weeks ago on a call about just being out in the neighborhood and saying hi to people loud enough, you know, they hear you, and yet they don't even acknowledge that you're there, that you're a human being, that you've said anything to them. And so I'd have all these realtors come through, and I'd say, "Hi, how you doing?" And the same thing, just like Sandy said, no acknowledgement that you're a human being. And, hey, you know, I'm sorry, I'm in a dirty business. Yeah, I got dirty pants on, I got a dirty shirt on, okay? But I'm still a human being. I still have feelings. You know, I'm just like you. It's just that I do a different job. And yet they wouldn't even recognize that I was there, that I was a human being. And after, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 people come through that I'd say hi to, after a while I'd get an attitude, and I'd say, you know what, I'm not even going to say hi to any of these other people. So the next person invariably that would come through the door, I wouldn't look it up and acknowledge that they were there. And they just come through and say, "Hi, how you doing?" And then I'd feel like a jerk because I didn't say hi to them, you know. And so I think that's one of the things that really impressed me about this story, you know, with Theodore Roosevelt, that he took the time. He knew the staff people, and he didn't recognize himself as being greater than them. He saw them on the same plane as him, even though he did a different job and he held a higher office. And I believe in a spiritual principle that Napoleon Hill writes about a lot. And that principle is going the extra mile for other people. And that, yes, you may go the extra mile over here in this area, but it's going to pay off over here in this area. And I think that's what Danielle's talking about, where she took the time and was honest with a lady, and that lady was so impressed with her honesty that that she's out here telling all these other people, you gotta talk to Danielle because she's an honest person and she's going to take care of you. She's going to treat you right. And that's that going the extra mile for other people, not just being out for all that I can get from me and whatever I can take from you, I'll take it from any means. No, it's looking out for the other person's interest and putting them ahead of yourself and treating them the way that you would like to be treated. And then that spiritual law kicks in, and you don't know where it's going to kick in at, but it will kick in. And what you do to others, you in effect do to yourself. And so I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Well, I love that, Danielle, you brought up the colors because I know that lots of groups have different colors training, and one of the groups that I'm in, we have colors training, but it with the colors the way you described them there, Danielle. And I think that that's I don't want people to get the wrong idea. It's not like we're looking for, we're going to study personality so that we can get that catch or whatever. It's not about that. It's learning about how to help people accept themselves, the good qualities and the challenging qualities, because we all have good parts and challenging parts, and so we have to learn about ourselves and we have to learn about other people, because for one personality color, a trait that they would consider not such a good trait for them is actually a strength, in another way. There's I hate to use the words good and bad because I think it's all good, but each trait, can have those good or bad things depending on how far you take it or how far you don't take it. And so to really learn how to speak to someone, in other words, you don't want to talk to a green or a yellow about having a lot of fun. You're not going to motivate them with a lot of fun. You're going to motivate a green by offering them more information, or you're going to motivate a yellow by talking about their why, especially because it's always going to relate to their family for a yellow. So it's really important to study people and not to manipulate them. That's what I'm trying to get across, because when I first came to this whole mindset, reading all these books, and I was a nurse for 20 years. I just went out and helped people, took care of them physically. I didn't know about all this other stuff necessarily. And I thought, wow, they're just trying to manipulate people. And at first I was like, whoa, I just really don't want anything to do with that. And once, thank goodness, I was open-minded enough to say, well, let me, check this out. And once I got into it, I find that I've learned so much about myself and things that I used to beat myself up over. I thought I was a yellow. Turns out I'm a blue. Well, they have totally different outlooks. And so when I thought I was a yellow, I was beating myself up over wanting to have fun. And then once I found out I was a blue, I was like, yay, I'm supposed to have fun. I have to, So it's important because it helps with self-acceptance, and it really helps you find genuine ways that you can connect and help someone, because that's, down deep we all have the very same needs, but we have these filters that we have to kind of go through to get down to it. In the end, we all just want to be loved and accepted for who we are, right? But we have to get there. And through life experiences and personality traits, it sets up all these filters. And I think that's what having a mastermind or a soundboard is so good for, is to point out those filters, because we don't always recognize them ourselves until somebody else, gives us that little nudge and helps us see something a little more clearly.
Yeah, that's really important, Danielle. We got to be having fun. We got to be having fun with this, and I was thinking about that color coding. That would definitely help me to remember people's names a lot easier if I could sort of get a good idea of the type of person they are through certain questions, I guess. Um, I was thinking, how this relates into sales and building, and not only just building rapport, but you're also when asking your new clients, good questions not only about their personal life but about their business. You get a sense of how they like to conduct their business. Are they strictly business when they're dealing with business, or what are the things about their business that are important to them? You know, and by asking, the only way we can find out if you're dealing with, first of all, if you're on the same page as the person, but also if this customer is fertile ground for what you're trying to promote to them, is by asking good questions. And so I think all these are really great strategies to they're good options. They're good possibilities. You're not going to run through a checklist and say, okay, what is your family situation? Are you married? Are you're not, nobody wants to be interviewed that way, so to speak. There is that. I think Samantha was talking about someone utilizing tools in their email or marketing campaign to ask surveys and then keying off of that. That's an excellent way to do that and not be too intrusive. But when you're dealing one-on-one with someone, like say over the phone, you're trying to show, you're showing genuine interest in them in order to, just figure out what it is you might be able to help them in. And I think you'll see that you won't be as congested with other thoughts that keep you from breaking through to that person in the way that you want, if that makes sense. I mentioned business-to-business sales and how I like those better because you get to have a relationship with that person over a long period of time, over your career with that company. And it brought to mind the idea that so many times for me as personal experience, I've built up a pipeline of clients that I've got to know and love, and then something happens in the industry, or something happens and the company closes, and that pipeline, that commission, that all those people that you've built up relationships with, now you don't have their numbers, you don't have their information to get back in contact with them, even though you do, not just to sell them anything, but you built up this friendship with so many of them. And that's a real bummer. And it just occurred to me, when Dan was talking and when you guys were talking, that that's the reason we have to be, one of the reasons I think we have to be in business for ourselves, so we can control that and stay in contact with these people, so that we don't have to feel like, oh, we're just creating this relationship with this person just to get the sale, and then they're out of our life. It's we can feel good that, okay, we do have the ability to stay with it and stay with them and be they can be a part of our lives, and hopefully we can be a good part of their lives too. So there's so many ideas coming through when you guys are talking. Really great discussion, and thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for sharing that, Jason. We're about at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for today, unless somebody wants to add something before we finish out. Any final comments? Okay. Oh, the one thing I wanted to kind of final this today out with is that, of course, in this chapter, it talks about, this book's all about how to win friends and influence people in the digital age. And of course, we've all talked about how to connect with people better and show them that you care by showing an interest in them. And one thing it mentioned in this particular chapter is it was talking about, it's easier than ever to get to know people, because if you're on Facebook or you're on Google Plus or you're just anywhere out there on any of these social platforms, people are constantly broadcasting what is important to them. And when you can take that time to go look at their profile and not just feed of what they're posting on a daily basis, but to look at their pictures and look at their about section and look at more than just the couple of pictures of quotes or whatever that they're posting, but actually get to know them a little bit. Then when you start up a conversation with someone, it's easier to make that conversation, because you can say, hey, I saw your this, that, or the other. I saw you just wished your daughter a happy 11th birthday, and you were at whatever place you were at. You can actually start a conversation about something you already know is important to that person, because they would not be putting it out there if it wasn't important to them. And so I challenge each of you this week to go, and I'm not saying you got to spend hours and hours and hours of trying to communicate with people, but spend some time each day. Maybe pick out 2 people in your friends list and learn something about them that you didn't already know, and then start a conversation about it. Because when you start doing that and you really get to know people, that's when your business is going to begin to take off. So I encourage you each to do that. And then otherwise, I just want to go ahead and say thank you to everybody for hanging out with us. Marlene posted another comment here at the end. Let's see what she says. She says, thank you. You have all inspired me and shared your knowledge. Let's all enjoy our day. Yeah, absolutely, Marlene. I want everybody to have an awesome, an amazing, beautiful weekend, and and go out there and make more connections with people on a deeper level, and quit focusing on trying to make that sale, and focus on trying to learn more about the person and what they want, and that way you can actually help them in a way that they will feel like you've helped them. So with that, have a great day, and connect with us over in our Google Plus community, which is mindsetmasterycollective.com, and meet us here again next Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern. You can always find us at SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. So with that, have a great day, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.